The holoscreen flickered in the quiet cabin of Jack Turner's ship. He had just returned from a long cargo run and was ready to sleep when the urgent message appeared in glowing letters. Notice of inheritance. By the laws of the Galactic. Accord, you are the legal heir of Admiral Coran's estate. And his spouse. Jack froze. His jaw dropped, and the glass of water in his hand slipped, shattering on the floor. What the hell? He whispered. He read the line again, his eyes scanning the message for some kind of mistake. But there it was, his name, the seal of the Interstellar High Court, and a second line that made his heart race faster. Immediate travel required. Bonding must be confirmed within 7 cycles. Jack sank into his chair, staring at the empty space ahead. Admiral Coran. That name. Pulled memories from years ago. The war, the chaos, the desperate fights when humanity was on the edge of extinction. Coran had been more than an ally. He had been a brother in arms. The alien admiral had saved Jack's life more than once, and Jack had promised to return the favor someday. But this? Inheriting an alien wife? What kind of favor was that? Jack slammed the console shut and stood up, pacing the metal floor of his small cabin. A spouse? What am I supposed to do with that? He muttered. He wasn't married. He wasn't even dating. And now, some alien Princess Snow, widow, was legally bound to him because of Coran's last wish? He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. This wasn't funny. This was dangerous. The message had mentioned Alliance Protocol, and Jack knew enough about alien politics to understand what that meant. If he refused this bond, the alliance between Earth and Coran's people could shatter. And when alliances break, wars begin. Jack rubbed his face, feeling the weight of something bigger than his own life pressing down on him. I can't refuse, he whispered to himself. Not after everything Coran did for me. The journey to the alien homeworld was long. Jack stared at the stars through his viewport, wondering what kind of person or creature was waiting for him. He pictured someone regal, cold, untouchable, a queen in all but name. And now, by law, she belonged to him. When the planet finally came into view, Jack felt his breath catch. It was beautiful, a swirling ocean world with rings of silver dust, glinting like diamonds. His ship pierced the clouds and entered an alien city floating on massive platforms above. Endless blue waters. Everything felt alive. Buildings shimmered like liquid metal, and lights danced across bridges that curved like ribbons in the wind. Alien figures moved gracefully through the streets, their robes glowing faintly under the twin suns. Jack's boots hit the polished floor of the landing platform. His heart thudded as 2 tall guards approached him, their armor engraved with sharp symbols. Without a word, they led him into a hall that looked like a dream, pillars of crystal, floors like mirrors, and a ceiling painted with constellations. He didn't know Dot, and then he saw her. Lady Arinya. She stood at the far end of the hall, framed by golden curtains, swaying in the ocean breeze. She was tall and slender, her skin pale silver with a shimmer like starlight. Her hair flowed down her back like liquid midnight, and her eyes bright violet, glowing softly, locked onto his. For a moment, Jack forgot how to breathe. He had seen alien women before, but never like this. There was grace in every movement, but also a weight of sadness in her expression, as if the galaxy itself rested on her shoulders. When he approached, she did not bow or smile. She studied him like a soldier measuring an opponent. "You are Jack Turner," she said, her voice calm, almost musical. "Yes," Jack replied, his throat dry. "And you must be Lady Arinya." "I am." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes unblinking. "By the law of my people, you are now my protector and my mate." The words hit him like a thunderclap. Jack tried to respond, but his voice stuck. I I didn't ask for this, he said finally. Neither did I, she answered softly, and for a heartbeat, her cold mask cracked, revealing something raw beneath. They stood in silence as the wind swept through the hall. Somewhere far below, ocean waves crashed against the floating city's foundations. Then Arinya stepped closer. Jack could see the faint glow on her skin, could feel the strange heat radiating from her body. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but each word landed like a blade. Before we seal this bond, I have one request. Jack swallowed hard. What request? Her violet eyes burned like twin stars as she spoke the words that froze him to the core. Give me a child. Not later. Now. Jack felt the world tilt beneath him. The ocean roared outside. His mind went blank. What? He stammered, his voice cracking. You heard me, human. Her tone was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. It is not a choice. It is survival. Jack stared at her, his heart pounding like a war drum. Survival? What did that mean? And why did her voice sound like a plea instead of a command? Jack took a step back, his voice low. What aren't you telling me, Arinya? She turned away, her glowing eyes shadowed as she whispered, If I fail, I die. Jack couldn't breathe. Her words echoed in the vast hall like thunder. Give me a child. Not later. Now. He blinked, thinking he had misheard. Child? His voice cracked. You can't be serious. Arinya turned to face him, her silver skin glowing faintly in the golden light. Her violet eyes were calm, but there was something behind them, fear, buried deep. I am very serious, she said softly. This is not about you. Or me. It is about survival. Jack took a slow step toward her, his pulse pounding like a drum. Survival? What does that even mean? Arinya's gaze didn't waver. My people are dying, she said. The war with the Dominion burned entire generations. We cannot restore what was lost unless... Her voice faltered for the first time. Unless I bear a child with you. Jack felt like someone had punched the air out of his lungs. You expect me to just... He stopped, words choking in his throat. We don't even know each other. This is insane. Arinya moved closer, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the crystal floor. You think I want this? She asked, her voice trembling now. Do you think I dreamed of this fate? To marry a stranger from another world? To beg him for something so personal? Jack stared at her. For the first time, the steel in her voice cracked, revealing something raw, something human, almost. She wasn't just a cold alien princess giving orders. She was desperate. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Look, I respect your customs, but this is too much. Arinya tilted her head, her expression hardening. If you refuse, she said, the bond will break. The alliance between our people will shatter. And the war that Corain died to prevent will begin again. Jack froze. The words hit him like ice. You're saying, if I say no, billions could die? Yes. Her voice was flat now, but her hands were clenched tight. And if I say yes? Arinya looked away, her hair falling like a dark waterfall over her shoulder. Then I live. My people have hope. And the bloodline continues. Jack's chest tightened. He wanted to scream. He wanted to walk out, get back on his ship, and vanish into the stars. But then he remembered Koran, the alien warrior who had dragged him out of fire, who had stood against enemy fleets for Earth. This was his last wish. He sank into a chair, his hands shaking. This isn't fair, Jack muttered. You didn't choose this. And neither did I. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the twin suns began to sink, painting. the floating city in hues of crimson and gold. Then Erinya spoke again, her voice softer now, almost breaking. "You are right, human. It isn't fair, but I have no time for fairness. If I fail to produce an heir—" Her words trailed off. Jack looked up sharply. "If you fail, what happens?" She turned her face toward the ocean horizon, her violet eyes glowing faintly. "Then I die." The words hit Jack like a blade. "Die? What do you mean, die?" Arinya's lips curved in a bitter smile. "Our laws are harsh. A royal bond without a child is considered dishonor. Dishonor means death." Jack felt cold all over. He stared at her, trying to read her expression. She wasn't lying. Every word was real. He stood up slowly, stepping toward her. "Why didn't you tell me this first?" Arinya finally turned to him, and for the first time since they met, tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. "Because I did not want your pity," she whispered. "I wanted your choice." Jack's breath caught. He had seen many things in his life: wars, death, alien skies, but this was something else. An alien woman, proud and strong, standing before him, begging without words for her life. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but a sound from the doorway froze them both. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, armored, holding a blade that glowed like molten fire. Jack spun around, his hand going to the small plasma pistol at his side. "Who the hell?" The stranger's voice was a low growl. "You should not have come here, human." Arinya moved fast, stepping in front of Jack, her own hand glowing with strange energy. "Leave, Rawl," she said sharply. "This is not your fight." The intruder laughed, a deep, cruel sound. "Oh, but it is. If the bond is sealed, the rebels lose everything. And we cannot allow that." Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. "Rebels?" he whispered. Before anyone could move, the blade ignited with a roar, slicing through the air. Jack dove aside. As the floor exploded in sparks, Jack rolled, grabbed Arinya's arm, and pulled her toward the exit as Rawl advanced, his eyes burning with hatred. Plasma fire lit up the hall. The last thing Jack heard before the doors slammed shut was the rebel's voice. "You will die before you give her what she wants, human." The door slammed shut behind them with a hiss, and the hall exploded in fire. Jack dragged Arinya down the marble corridor, his boots pounding against the shimmering floor as alarms blared through the palace. The walls trembled as plasma blasts tore through the air. "Keep moving," Jack shouted, gripping her hand tight. Arinya didn't argue. Her breath came fast, her long legs keeping pace as they ran through winding passages, glowing with alien symbols. Behind them, the sound of boots grew louder, metal striking metal like war drums. They burst into a glass bridge suspended over a sea of clouds. Wind howled around them as Jack yanked her forward. "Where's the exit?" he yelled. "There is no exit," she replied, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Not unless we reach the sky spire." "And where the hell is that?" She pointed toward a towering crystal structure far across the floating city. Jack swore under his breath. Great, a mile-long death trap. Perfect. The bridge shook as an explosion ripped through the hall behind them. The rebel leader, Rawl, stepped into view, his molten blade burning like a star. His armored boots crushed shards of glass beneath him as he advanced slowly. "Run all you want," his voice echoed, cold and cruel. "You cannot hide from fate." Jack raised his plasma pistol, fired 3 quick shots. Blue bolts cracked through the air, but Rawl moved like a shadow, dodging each one. Jack's blood ran cold. This guy isn't just a soldier. He's a monster. "Go!" Jack barked, shoving Arinya forward. "Run!" They sprinted across the bridge, shards of glass flying under their feet as more rebels appeared from the mist, weapons blazing. Jack fired over his shoulder, his shots searing holes in the attackers. Armor. One rebel fell screaming into the clouds below. Another leapt over the railing like some beast, claws digging into the glass behind them. Jack slammed his elbow into the creature's jaw and kicked him off the bridge. "You weren't kidding about rebels," he grunted, breath ragged. "They are worse than rebels," Arinya said, her voice trembling now. "They are purists. They want my bloodline erased." Jack cursed under his breath. This wasn't just politics. This was genocide. At last, they reached a side door that led into a narrow corridor carved from smooth obsidian. Jack slammed it shut and sealed it with a blast from his pistol. For a moment, silence filled the air except for their heavy breathing. Jack leaned against the wall, wiping sweat from his brow. "You okay?" Arinya nodded slowly, though her glowing eyes still flickered with fear. "Yes, thanks to you." Jack slid down the wall and sat on the cold floor. His chest heaved, every muscle burning. He looked at her, really looked this time. Her silver skin shimmered in the faint light, her hair cascading like black silk over her shoulders. She wasn't wearing armor now, only a flowing ceremonial robe torn from the fight. It clung to her like liquid shadow, revealing the elegant curves of her body. Jack swallowed hard and looked away. "Focus, Turner. This isn't the time." Arinya sank down across from him, her hands resting on her knees. For a while, neither spoke. Then she said softly, "You saved me?" "Why?" Jack blinked. "What kind of question is that?" "A logical one," she said. "You had a choice. Leave me and save yourself. Yet you risked death for me." Jack let out a short laugh. "I guess I'm stupid like that." But inside, he knew the truth. He couldn't leave her, not because of the alliance, not because of duty, but because when he saw her standing there alone, proud, desperate, something inside him refused. To let her die. Silence stretched between them. The glow from the emergency lights cast her face in soft shadows. For the first time, Jack noticed the cracks in her perfect mask, the exhaustion, the fear, the loneliness. Then Arinya spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I told you before. If I fail to give an heir, I die." Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, I remember." She looked down at her hands. "Do you understand now why I made that request?" Jack's throat tightened. "I understand, but it doesn't make it any easier." Her violet eyes lifted to meet his, and for a moment, the world outside that corridor ceased to exist. "I don't want your pity, human," she said, her voice steady but her eyes glistening. "I want your trust." Jack opened his mouth to speak, but the sound of boots echoed again in the distance. The rebels had found them. Arinya stood, her energy flaring around her like a halo of light. "They will kill you if they catch us," she said. "Then we don't let them," Jack growled, rising to his feet and checking his weapon. She placed a hand on his arm, her skin warm, almost electric. "If we survive this night, my request still stands." Jack met her gaze, his heart pounding. He wanted to ask why she looked at him that way, why her voice shook when she spoke, but the door at the end of the corridor blew apart in a burst of fire. The rebels stormed in, weapons raised. Jack grabbed Arinya's hand, pulling her close. "Time to move." He shouted *** as they ran into the shadows, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. Jack felt her fingers tighten around his. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he was saving her or if she was saving him. The safe house door slammed shut behind them, sealing out the chaos for now. Jack leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, while Arinya stood near the center of the small chamber, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim blue light. Outside, Alarms screamed across the floating city. Plasma fire crackled in the distance. Jack could hear the faint hum of hovercraft engines searching the skies like predators. "Are they gone?" he asked, gripping his pistol tightly. "For now," Arinya said, her voice low but steady. "But they will not stop." Jack scanned the room. It was small metallic walls lined with alien symbols. A single couch, a table with strange glowing fruits, and a door that probably led to another chamber. "This place safe?" he asked. Arinya gave a slight nod. "For a few hours. Maybe less." Jack dropped onto the couch, letting out a long breath. His muscles burned from running. He checked his plasma pistol, half charge left. Not great. He glanced at Arinya. She hadn't sat down. She stood straight, like a queen in exile, her robe torn and blood-stained from the fight. Her violet eyes glowed softly, but there was something different. Now tiredness, maybe even fear. "You okay?" he asked, her head turned slowly toward him. "Are you?" Jack gave a half-smile. "I'm used to running for my life." "You? Not so much, I'm guessing." For a moment, the corners of her lips curved, the closest thing to a smile he had. "Seen. Perhaps you are right," she said softly, then moved closer and sat across from him. Silence filled the room, heavy and strange. Jack stared at the floor, then at her. "Those guys? Purists, right?" he said finally. "Yes," Arinya replied. "They believe in blood purity. To them, bonding with a human is an abomination." Jack rubbed his temples. "Great. So, I'm public enemy number one." She tilted her head slightly. "No, I am." Jack looked up sharply. "What?" "If they kill me, the bond dies," she said simply. You are just a symbol. I am the target." Her calmness shook him. How could she talk about her own death like it was nothing? Jack leaned forward. "Listen to me. They're not touching you. Not while I'm breathing." Her violet eyes met his. "Why do you care so much, human?" Jack opened his mouth, then stopped. He didn't know the answer. Maybe it was duty. Maybe it was Koran's memory. Or maybe it was the way she looked at him now, like no one ever had before. The quiet stretched on, broken only by the distant rumble of engines outside. Arinya lowered her gaze to her hands. "Jack," she said softly. "Yeah? If we survive this night." Her voice faltered for a second, then steadied. "Will you honor my request?" Jack's chest tightened. He knew what she meant. Her first request. A child. He swallowed hard. "Arinya, this isn't just about survival, is it?" Her hands clenched on her lap. "At first, it was," she admitted. "But now—" She looked up, her glowing eyes wet with something like sorrow. "Now I don't want just an heir. I want someone who sees me, not as a queen, not as a symbol, but as a woman." Jack's breath caught. The air between them charged heavy. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. The silence shattered when the safe house shook violently. A blast ripped the door open, sending shards of metal across the room. Jack was thrown to the floor as smoke filled the chamber. "Down!" he yelled, grabbing Arinya and pulling her behind the couch. Plasma fire tore through the walls, burning holes in the metal. Figures stormed in 3 rebels in black armor. Jack fired, dropping the first with a shot to the chest. The second lunged, swinging a glowing blade. Jack rolled, blasted him point-blank in the face. The third aimed for Arinya. Jack saw the flash of the blade and moved without thinking. He threw himself in front of her, taking the blow across his shoulder. Pain exploded through his body as he slammed his fist into the rebel's throat and fired. A final shot into his chest. The body dropped. Smoke curled in the air. Jack fell to his knees, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "Jack!" Arinya's voice trembled as she knelt beside him. Her hands glowed as she pressed them against the wound. Heat surged through his body, strange and soothing. What are you doing?" he groaned. "Keeping you alive," she whispered, her face inches from his. Her hair brushed his cheek, her scent like wild flowers mixed with metal. Jack stared at her glowing eyes, her trembling lips, and felt something deep inside him shift. She saved him. And he wanted to save her, not out of duty anymore, but something stronger. Asterisk. Outside, more footsteps thundered. Voices shouted in the alien tongue. Arinya looked at Jack, her hands still glowing on his wound. "They are coming," she said. Jack gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, pain screaming through his arm. "Then we fight," he growled. Arinya's eyes burned brighter than ever. "No, Jack, we run, because if we die here, everything dies with us." Asterisk. The night swallowed them as they fled into the maze of glowing streets. Jack's arm throbbed. With pain, blood soaking through the bandage Arinya had tied in haste. His pistol felt heavier with every step, but he refused to let go of her hand. The city stretched endlessly bridges, like ribbons of light, towers rising into a violet sky where the twin moons glowed. Shadows moved everywhere. A hum of rebel. Ships swept overhead, their searchlights cutting through the mist like blades. "Where are we going?" Jack hissed. "To the Underdeep," Arinya replied, her voice calm but tight. "They won't follow us there." Jack frowned. "And what's in the Underdeep?" "Darkness," she said simply. "And secrets." They reached a hidden stairway, spiraling down into the depths beneath the floating city. The air grew colder as they descended, their footsteps echoing off metal walls. Jack's vision blurred from blood loss, but he kept moving. When they finally stopped, they stood in a cavernous chamber filled with dim blue lights and ancient machines humming like ghosts. It felt like stepping into the bones of a forgotten world. "This is cozy," Jack muttered, dropping against a pillar, his voice strained. Arinya knelt beside him, her long hair falling like a curtain as she examined his wound. Her glowing hands brushed against his skin again, sending waves of strange warmth through his body. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. Jack managed a weak laugh. "Only when I breathe." Her lips curved slightly. "Then breathe less." As she healed him, silence filled the chamber. Jack watched her face in the faint blue glow, the sharp elegance of her features, the soft tremor in her lips. She looked like a queen even here in the shadows, but there was something fragile in her now, something human in the way her hands shook. "You've done this before?" Jack asked, nodding at the healing glow. "Yes," she whispered, "but never for someone who mattered." Jack's breath caught. Arinya. He didn't know what to say. Didn't know why his chest tightened when she said that. When she finished, his pain dulled to a faint ache. He sat up slowly, his gaze locked on hers. "You could have left me," he said quietly. "And let you die?" She asked, her voice almost a whisper. "I would rather die first." The words hit him harder than any wound. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the hum of the machines the only sound around them. Then Jack spoke, his voice low and rough. "You said before, if we survive this, you still want what you asked." Her violet eyes shimmered. "In the dark." "Yes." "Why?" His voice cracked. "If it's just about survival, there are other ways. Science, technology, cloning, anything." Arinya shook her head slowly. "This is not only about survival. It is about meaning. My people. They will only accept an airborne of the bond. And her voice trembled now. "I do not want a hollow duty. I want something real. Even if it is only for a moment." Jack's heart pounded. He could see it now, the truth in her eyes. This wasn't just law. This wasn't just politics. She wanted him not because she was forced, but because something had changed between them. And, damn it, he wanted her too. The air grew heavy. Jack reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against hers. Her hand was warm, soft, trembling. She didn't pull away. "Arinya," he whispered. "Yes, Jack? I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's right, but I'm not going to let you die. Not like this." Her breath caught as he pulled her closer. For a heartbeat, they just stood there, inches apart, staring into each other's eyes. Then her lips parted, and the world fell away as he kissed her slow, deep, desperate. She melted against him, her hands sliding up his back, pulling him closer, like she had been waiting for this moment all her life. The hum of the machines faded. The pain in his arm disappeared. There was only her warmth, her heartbeat against his, the taste of something wild and unknown. But the moment shattered, when a sound cut through the silence, a harsh voice, echoing from the shadows, touching, truly touching. Jack tore away from the kiss, spinning with his pistol raised. Arinya stiffened, her glow dimming as a tall figure stepped from the darkness. Rawl. His molten blade burned brighter than before, and behind him, more purists, their eyes blazing with hatred. "Did you really think you could hide from us?" Rawl sneered, his voice like poison. Jack tightened his grip on the pistol, his breath ragged. "Get behind me," he growled to Arinya. "No," she said firmly, stepping beside him. Her hands began to glow with deadly light. "We fight together." Rawl raised his blade, its fiery edge casting monstrous shadows across the chamber. "Kill the human," he snarled, "and bring me the traitor alive." Jack met Arinya's eyes one last time. "Stay close," he whispered. She nodded, her voice steady and fierce. "Always." Then the rebels charged, and the chamber erupted in fire. The chamber exploded into chaos. Blades hissed, plasma bolts roared, and sparks rained from the ceiling as Rawl and his purists charged forward. Jack fired his pistol until the charge meter screamed empty. The first rebel went down in a flash of blue fire, but two more leapt through the smoke, their molten blades slicing the air like burning serpents. "Jack!" Arinya's voice cut through the roar. He turned just in time to see a blade swinging for her. Without thinking, Jack threw himself in the way. The blade grazed his armor, sending pain ripping through his ribs. But he didn't stop. He slammed his fist into the rebel's helmet, grabbed the weapon arm, and twisted until bones cracked. The alien screamed, collapsing as Jack tore the yank, blade free, and whirled on the others. Now he had their weapon, and it burned in his grip like liquid fire. "Stay behind me." Jack yelled, swinging the blade in a wide arc that cut a second rebel clean across the chest. But Arinya didn't stay behind him. She moved like a storm, her hands glowing with a strange white fire as she hurled energy blasts that shattered armor like glass. For a moment, the two of them fought as one. Jack with raw, human fury, Arinya with alien grace and power. Sparks lit the dark like a dying sun. The floor shook under their feet. Then Rawl moved. He was faster than the others, his molten blade leaving trails of fire in the air as he closed in on Jack. Their weapons clashed with a roar that shook the chamber. Jack's arms screamed with pain as he blocked, sparks spraying his face. "You think you can take her from us, human?" Rawl snarled, his voice like thunder. "You are nothing. A speck of dirt." Jack gritted his teeth. "Funny thing about dirt." He slammed his boot into Rawl's knee, twisted, and drove the blade toward his chest. "It grows into something when you water it with blood." The strike landed, but not deep enough. Rawl roared and slammed Jack into the wall, crushing the air from his lungs. The molten blade rose for the kill. "Jack!" Her scream cut through the haze. Arinya's hands glowed brighter than ever, her body blazing with alien energy. With a cry that shook the walls, she hurled a wave of pure white fire that blasted Rawl across the chamber. He slammed into the far wall. His blade clattering to the floor. Jack collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His chest burned. Blood dripped from his side. Arinya dropped beside him, her hands on his face. "Jack, stay with me." Her voice broke, tears shimmering in her violet eyes. "Still here," he rasped, forcing a weak grin. "Not dead yet." Her hands glowed as she pressed them to his wounds. Warmth surged through him, but he saw the cost immediately. Her skin dimmed. Her glow faded. She was giving him everything, her energy, her life force. "Stop," he whispered. "You'll kill yourself." "I would rather die than lose you," she said fiercely, her tears falling onto his blood-stained shirt. Jack stared at her through the haze of pain. "Arinya? Yes? You're not doing this just for your people, are you?" She froze, her breath catching. Then she whispered the truth. "No, I'm doing this for you." The words hit him like a lightning strike. All the walls between them shattered in that instant. Jack cupped her face with his shaking hand, his voice low and raw. "Then I swear, if we live through this, I'm never letting you go." But there was no time for promises. A shadow loomed over them. Raw, broken, burned, but not dead. His armor smoked, his eyes burning with hatred. He raised a dagger glowing with molten heat, ready to strike Arinya from behind. Jack saw it. He didn't think, he just moved. With a roar, he threw himself in front of her again. The dagger plunged into his shoulder, searing agony ripping through him. Jack's vision blurred, but his hands found the fallen blade. With the last of his strength, he swung. The molten blade carved through Rawl's chest in a blinding arc of fire. The rebel leader froze, eyes wide, before collapsing in a heap of burning armor. Jack dropped the weapon. His knees buckled. Darkness closed in at the edges of his vision. "Jack!" No, stay with me." Arinya's voice broke into sobs as she pulled him into her arms, her tears falling onto his bloodied face. His lips curved in a faint smile. "Guess I'm stubborn," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Her glowing hands pressed to his chest, her power pouring into him again, even as her own strength faded. "Don't you dare leave me," she cried. "Don't you dare." Jack wanted to speak, to tell her everything, but the darkness swallowed him before the words could come. Asterisk. As Jack's body went limp in her arms, Arinya lifted her glowing eyes to the shadows where more footsteps echoed. The rebels weren't done, not yet. She held Jack close, her voice a whisper of fire. "You will not take him from me. Not while I live." Asterisk. Jack woke to fire. His vision blurred as heat washed over him. The ceiling shook, sparks rained like dying stars, and the taste of metal filled his mouth. His body ached everywhere, but one thing cut through the pain: Arinya's voice. "Hold the line," she shouted, her voice strong but trembling. Jack blinked, forcing his eyes open. Arinya stood at the center of the chamber, glowing like a star, on the edge of death. Her hands blazed with white fire as waves of energy tore through the rebels closing in. But for every one she struck down, two more appeared from the shadows. Jack tried to rise. Pain exploded through his body, but he gritted his teeth and pushed to his knees. His hand closed around the molten blade lying near his side, its heat burning into his palm. He saw her then, Arinya, swaying, her glow flickering like a dying candle. She was giving everything she had. For him, for both of them. "Arinya!" Jack's voice cracked. She spun at the sound, her violet eyes wide with relief and fear. "Jack, you shouldn't—" "Too late," he rasped, staggering to his feet. Blood dripped down his arm, but his grip on the blade was steady. "I'm not leaving you." The rebels roared and surged forward. Jack charged to meet them. His blade slashed through the air, glowing arcs of fire carving into armor, flesh, and steel. He fought like a man who had nothing to lose because, without her, he had nothing. "Jack!" Arinya cried, rushing to his side. Her power flared one last time, blasting a rebel into molten shards. "Get down!" Jack shouted, spinning and cutting through another. Plasma fire scorched the walls as the chamber became a storm of light and blood dot. Then came the sound that froze them both, a deep metallic rumble as the ceiling split open. A massive Purist warship hovered above, its cannons locking onto the chamber. Dozens of rebels poured through the breach, their weapons glowing. It was the end. Jack tightened his grip on the blade, chest heaving, blood soaking his torn armor. "Looks like we're out of time," he said with a grim smile. Arinya turned to him, her glowing eyes shimmering with tears. "Then hear me now," she whispered, stepping close so her forehead touched his. "If we die, let it be as one." Jack's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her he loved her, but the words stuck behind the lump in his chest. Instead, he kissed her hard, fierce, like the universe could burn around them, and he wouldn't care. When their lips broke, he whispered against her ear, "Not today. We live for you, for us." Before Arinya could speak, a deafening roar split the skies. A beam of blue light tore through the warship's hull, ripping it in half like paper. Explosions bloomed across the horizon as sleek black shapes streaked through the clouds. Human warships. Earth's fleet. Jack's implant crackled. "Jack Turner, this is Commander Voss. Stand down, we've got you covered." Relief crashed through him like a tidal wave. Jack laughed wild, broken laughter as the ceiling rained fire and the rebels turned to flee. Arinya stared in shock, her lips parting. In disbelief. "Your people? They came for you?" Jack grinned, bloodied but unbroken. "Guess I'm more important than I thought." The last rebels fell under a storm of human fire as soldiers dropped into the chamber, their armor gleaming. Under alien light, Jack sagged against a pillar, his strength finally breaking, but Arinya was there, catching him in her arms. "Easy," she whispered, her tears wet against his cheek. "It's over now." Jack looked into her glowing eyes and smiled faintly. "No, it's not over. Not for us." Hours later, the chamber lay in ruins, but the warship wreckage burned far beyond the city. Human medics worked on Jack's wounds while Arinya sat beside him, her fingers laced with his. "Jack," she said softly. "Yeah?" Her voice trembled as she spoke the words that had started it all. "My request? Does it still stand?" Jack chuckled weakly, his thumb brushing her hand. "It does," he whispered. "But now, it's not just your request. It's mine, too." Her breath caught. For the first time, she smiled a real smile, radiant and full of life. "Then we begin." "A new bond," she said, her voice fierce yet tender. "Not for duty. Not for law. For us." Jack pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers as the twin suns rose outside the shattered walls, painting the ocean world in gold. "For us," he echoed. Asterisk as their lips met again, a medic approached with a datapad, hesitating. "Sir, there's something you should know." Jack frowned. "What?" The medic's eyes flicked to Arinya, then back to Jack. "Your genetic scan, and hers. You're not just compatible. The child you create will carry traits no species has ever seen before." Jack stared at Arinya. Her glowing eyes widened. "What does that mean?" she whispered. The medic's voice was hushed, almost fearful. "It means your heir won't just unite two worlds. It may change the galaxy forever." Jack looked at Arinya, his heart pounding with something bigger than love, bigger than fate. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid. *The end.